Warhammer 40,000 Darktide has 4 classes at your disposal, but across those classes are a number of base stats that are different, such as health, toughness, regeneration of your stamina, base stamina, all these things. And you might not be aware of all of these base stats. Well, I'm going to go through a Reddit post here that goes through a lot of the data mined class base stat values and modifiers to give you a really good idea of how each class differs in those base stats. Now you might be thinking these base stats are probably stupid and annoying. Who even needs to know this kind of information? Well, you do, because if you're playing a veteran, you take more damage sprinting than any other class. I hope you now know that. Toughness damage, that is. So in this video, we're going to go through each class and their base stats. I'm going to highlight them in red or green. Green will denote that it's, hey, this is either really good or it's the best for all the 4 classes. Or it's red because it's really bad, or it's the worst for all 4 classes. You can jump to any portion of the video that interests you the most, because I've broken this up into each of the 4 classes and my kind of overall closing thoughts on things. So you can just jump to each chapter that interests you the most in the timeline and the description. And as always, guys, if you end up enjoying the content, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Each one of those things helps me out a ton. Also, lastly, you can jump onto my Twitch, follow my Twitch, and watch me stream Darktide. Join in on some games with me. We do community penance runs. We just do community testing of various weapons, all sorts of fun things. Find that Twitch link in the description and the pinned comment. But let's get started here on the base stat values and modifiers for Warhammer 40,000 Darktide. So just to kind of open our video up with a quick bit of credit here, Adius here put all this information into an easy digestible format, and he pulled it from Darkmass, the data mining website that has given us a lot of really crucial information about the glossary of terms in the game, a lot of stuff under the hood. So a huge shout out here to Adius and to Darkmass. I'll be putting the link to this Reddit post in the description and pinned comments, so you guys can go ahead and just look through it yourself, read through some of the comments, look through some other stuff. But I just want to give credit where credit is due to these gentlemen for getting everything out displayed for us. So let's look at our first person in the veteran and take a look at what we're dealing with here. So health here is the same across the board. Knockdown health is the same across the board for pretty much every single class. But toughness is where things kind of get a little wild, kind of get a little spicy. For the veteran here, the veteran has the most toughness at 200. Their regeneration speed for every single class is the same, whether you're moving or whether you're still at 5. But now take a look at these state damage modifiers. It's going to get really spicy here. So if you're dodging things as a veteran, you're going to take 100% toughness damage. If you're sprinting, you're going to take 200% toughness damage. Up until this point in the game, what the hell does that mean? Up until this point in my playing of Darktide, I thought that toughness damage was toughness damage, but sliding, you actually get 50% state damage modifier here for your damage. So you're not getting that full 100% from dodging or 200% from sprinting. That's huge. I didn't realize that that was even a thing. So this gives you a little bit of a context clue as to how the designers intended the veteran to be played, or intended where for him to be placed in the combat line, right? Like, yeah, sure, he's intended to be more of a backline character, even though he replenishes more toughness from melee kills than any character in the game. And I think that's kind of part and parcel to the fact that you will be dealing with kind of random backline attacks, and this is a great way to replenish your toughness, since you might be further away from coherency and getting that toughness replenishment from coherency and stuff like that with the veteran. But it's why I think they've got that 200 toughness, and why they get so much toughness toughness damage increase from dodging and sprinting, because it doesn't want them to be in that front line. Then again, it kind of hits that point of, I can't shoot through my teammates, so I kind of always need to be mid to front line because of it. So that's kind of a very interesting thing, and it's absolutely huge that stop sprinting if you're playing veteran. You're going to take a lot of damage if you do, especially in Damnation, where a gun line can melt you in like 3 shots, it feels like. So really be mindful of that when you're playing your veteran from now on. For stamina here, base stamina of 2. I think they share that with the with the Psyker, but regeneration delay is the longest of any class at 1.25. So your stamina will take a long time to get back. So be mindful of that. If you're depleting your stamina, doing a lot of dodges, doing a lot of blocking, a lot of block pushing, it's going to take you longer to get your stamina back than anyone else. Some no stamina sprint speed multipliers 0.5, the same as I think the Psyker. Your regeneration per second is 1. So it's going to take 1.25 seconds for you to start regenerating at 1 per second. So just that's how those two work in conjunction. No stamina sprint speed deceleration time is 1. I think that's the same for everyone else. Now, dodging is a pretty interesting set of situations. Consecutive dodge reset is the same for everyone, I think, with a minor increase for the Zealot. Stop and threshold is whatever it is. The base distance here for the dodge on the Zealot is a good 2.5. That middle ground between a lot of other classes. In fact, I'm going to highlight that cyan. Your dodge cooldown is 0.2, which I think is a shared one as well. Your minimum dodge input, I don't really know what that means, but dodge jump override timer is the best at 0.5. And I think, and I don't know if someone wants to let this be known in the comment section of what this actually means. I think it's, if I'm trying to consecutively dodge left or right or forward, or can't dodge forward or back, it's the ability to override that dodge input with a jump command instead. And I think if you've if you've already bound your dodge and your jump to separate keys, which you probably should be doing, this is not important. But I might be wrong here. So if you actually know what that means from under the hood metacode perspective, let me know in the comment section. So I just wanted to highlight that because he's got the best one. But here's another little spicy one that the veteran gets. Base crit strike chance 0.1. So they have a 10% base crit chance. The best of any class. It's double compared to any other class for the most part. I think it's either, it's double compared to the other classes. So this is not a melee crit chance. This is a crit strike chance, period. Melee or ranged. So they already do more. And I think that they probably did this at a 0.5 across the board. And they realized maybe that they needed that extra damage here, that extra kind of punching power to be more viable in the back range. But I mean, the bolter is so strong. The Mark 12 Cantrell lasgun is so beastly. I mean, a plasma gun to really melt things. So it's a pretty hefty bonus, especially with a power sword in conjunction. I think it's why the veteran feels so absolutely disgusting, because they can just get that extra bit of crit out amongst everyone else. So here are all the base stats for your veteran. So know now, again, just to recap, don't be sprinting and dodging, be sliding more if you can, and you will be doing more crit chance because you are a veteran and the devs love you. But that is our veteran. Let's move over here to the Psyker. Next up is Psyker. Now, things for the most part are pretty much the same up until the state damage modifier, but toughness is maxed out at 100 here. Everyone has 100 toughness. Now, this isn't the max toughness, of course. This is your base stat max toughness. You can increase that through curios and everything of the sort, but this is everyone else has 100 toughness to start out. Now, your state damage modifiers, you're going to be taking 50% less damage with sliding and dodging, but you're going to take 25% more damage when you're sprinting. So as a Psyker, don't be sprinting into gun lines. Try and make sure that you're sliding and dodging as much as you can to mitigate damage as best you can for your character. Your replenish type melee kills, meaning that whenever you do melee damage, it's 0.05. Remember, the veteran gets 0.075, so you're getting just 5% versus that 7.5%, so a 2.5% difference. They get the best. The veteran gets the best of their replenish type melee kill, except for the Ogryn, which has a very special one, which we'll talk about in a sec. But for stamina, you have the worst base stamina, but the best regeneration delay. So you're going to run out of stamina often, as I've seen while playing Psyker, but you'll actually replenish it. You'll start to replenish it quicker. So that's the kind of offset I think that they've done with this, is if you have a high base stamina, you have a low regeneration. And if you have a low base stamina, you have a high regeneration delay. And I think that that's probably fair. It does make playing Psyker pretty infuriating in the beginning, because you'll have a weapon, and if that weapon doesn't give you enough stamina bonus, your sprint is out in the beginning portions of a map in like 3 seconds flat, while everyone else is just track star running all the way to the end. But for dodge here, your base distance, hey, you got a new comment. Your base distance here is 2, and your dodge cooldown is 0.15. And I believe this is the cooldown from consecutive dodges. And I know I probably could have taken this information and put it onto its own format, but I felt like this is the best way to give credit to the poster, as well as the best way to digest this information easily. So I apologize if it's too low tech for you, by the way. So for Sprint 2, we're looking at a sprint move speed of 5.2. So you're moving just as fast as the Zealot, both of them having the fastest sprint move speed. And your critical strike base chance is also 0.05, that 5% base chance. So Psyker here definitely going to be taking some more damage while sprinting, and your stamina is quite low, so just kind of be mindful of those. But by and large, there's nothing too egregious here. Your dodge distance is low, so keep that in mind too. Anything that's going to increase your dodge distance is going to be significantly better on your Psyker, since your dodge distance is so low and your base stamina is so low. So look for weapons that do increase your stamina and your dodge distance to get the most out of what you already suffer from. Next up is my favorite, the Zealot, and really the reason behind the title of this video. Zealot feels so tanky because their state modifiers are insane. So if they're sprinting, if they're dodging, if they're sliding, they take like no damage by comparison. I thought that the Zealot just always felt so much tankier than the other classes, bleed build aside, right? If I've got the combat blade with lacerate and tear, whatever the 2 bleeding stack blessings are, and I'm going to town on things and just building up that 75% toughness damage reduction feat, then yeah, I'm like impregnable as a Zealot. But the state damage modifiers here is huge. So if I'm sliding, this whole thing has told me that I need to slide more in the game. I do not slide as much. Maybe I slide for dramatic emphasis because I think it looks cool, but no, sliding in this game is huge. That 0% right there is massive. The dodging is 0.5, the sprinting is 0.5, so I can sprint headlong into combat, and I'm not going to take as much damage as the other classes, at least. So that is really, 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 really nice to know. And I think, again, it's why the Zealot feels so strong. You should be increasing your toughness through curios the best that you can anyway. So this makes that Zealot even more impervious to damage through having that toughness damage mitigated as best they can with those state damage modifiers. Now, replenish type melee kill, they have the lowest here at 0.05. And I think this was kind of intended because the Zealot is in close combat the most of, well, maybe not of all of them. The Ogryn's up there with them sometimes too, right? Doing tons of damage in melee, and they also have a feat that replenishes when they're in melee. So I think that they probably saw this and was like, hey, we need to curtail this base number down because there's so many ways that they can replenish toughness from being in combat. So maybe that's why that's the lowest value, even because they're the one that's in combat the most. But it's worth highlighting as that is the lowest value of all the 4 classes. Now for stamina, base stamina is the highest regeneration delay of 0.75. No stamina sprint speed multiplier is 0.75, so they are not going to get slow down as much by having no stamina, and the regeneration per second is the highest at 1.5, so they'll regenerate stamina even quicker. This is all good because you're going to be in close combat, you're going to be pushing, you're going to be dodging, you're going to be push, blocking, and attacking through those things, so stamina is very crucial for the Zealot. For dodge, though, your dodge cooldown is lower at 0.15, the lowest. Your dodge jump override timer is at 0.5 as well. You share that with I believe the veteran. And your sprint move speed, along with the, what's that guy we just talked about? The Psyker is at 5.2 as well. Base crit chance is at 0.05. Now, this is your base crit chance for the character. Of course, your weapon is going to change this value. So it's going to add on to it, right? Some weapons have a negative base crit chance. Some weapons have a positive base crit chance. Like axes and daggers have a higher base crit chance than, say, I don't know, the power sword. I don't know what its base crit chance is, but this will add into that. So keep these things in mind with both your Zealot feat selection, your Zealot weapon selection, and now your base stat awareness of where their 5% just kind of crit comes from. You can kind of keep that in mind as you build out your feats and your classes and what have you. Let's move into our last big boy, the Ogryn. So as you all know, the Ogryn has the most health at 300 and their toughness is 100. I'm actually going to put this in red because with their toughness being at 100 and their state damage modifiers all being at 1 or 100%, for sliding, dodging, and sprinting, I think it kind of gets into a bit of the issue with the Ogryn right now. The Ogryn for the top Damnation tier 5 play feels relegated to pretty much using some form of way to mitigate as much damage coming your way, and that feels like the slab shield is the way to go. Now, you can of course use other weapons like the new power maul and stuff like that, and you can use the grenade launch or the grenade gauntlet to disrupt ranged squads and such like that. But I feel like with the amount of damage, that amount of toughness damage that the Ogryn takes, the health does not feel as much of a boon as I think it should, because toughness damage is just so brutal for them, especially because they're sliding, dodging, and sprinting and taking full amounts of damage. Sure, they have a shield to mitigate all of it, but I feel like, and you guys can let me know, this is an anecdotal experience, I do not play Ogryn. I have friends that play Ogryn and they all kind of feel the same way. I feel like you're locked to the slab shield because you need to mitigate damage coming your way, and you can't really hide behind anything. You can only line of sight so far or so much in the game before you have to jump out into combat. So I feel like a lot of these values could be tweaked in some way to make the Ogryn feel a little bit tankier. Now, one thing they do have though is this. So replenish types melee kill 0.05. No big deal, totally normal, right? But they also have replenish type Bonebreaker heavy hit. So doing heavy hit damage gives them an additional 0.05 replenishment to toughness. I had no idea that existed. Nothing in the game gives me a contextual clue to say, hey, aside from their feats, right? Like they do have tons of feats that give bonuses to heavy hitting. But if they had said, yeah, use heavy hits because it gives you more of a toughness replenishment, I would have been doing that way, way, way more. So it's nice to know that that actually has a base value of 0.05. Base stamina here is 4, so they have the highest base stamina of everyone. The Zealot right behind them with that 3. Regeneration delay is at 1, which is kind of like a nice middle ground, but no stamina sprint speed multiplier is 0.75 that they share with the Zealot, obviously because they're going to be running up close and personal with the Zealot as well. Their dodge distance is the highest at 3. Their dodge cooldown is the lowest at 0.25. And the dodge linger timer is Zingo. Is it Zingo? 0. What is a Zingo? I don't know what dodge linger timer is. I think it might be the amount of time in between dodges where the dodge status lingers on your character for this state modifier. So if I dodge and the state linger time is is 0, then I think that as soon as I'm done with the dodge, I'm no longer dodging. Versus some other classes, like the Zealot here, has a 0.25. So I think after I've dodged for 0.25 seconds, I'm still considered in a dodge state for damage modifiers. I don't know. If you do, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. But that concludes our Ogryn here, and gives us a good idea now of how a lot of these stats really play themselves out. So let me give you my concluding thoughts to wrap up our video. So taking a look at all these stats in conjunction, this is a huge shout out to Reddit user Psyker, who just put all this into this awesome spreadsheet. You can see everything, and he even marked like, hey, you know, this is sprinting's red here because it's like the worst of the other 4, or this is green here because it's the best of the other 4. So again, huge shout out to Reddit user Psyker for this. I think it's D Psyker, and you can kind of just see exactly where things kind of fall. Like, oh, okay, dodge linger timer is 0 for the Ogryn, or 200% sprint damage for the veteran. And I think that knowing these things, and I don't really think I need to know the granularity of maybe the regeneration delay. That stuff can be, or the dodge linger time. Those things don't necessarily need to be a part of my brain as a casual average gamer of Darktide. I think that that's totally fine. But I think something in the game telling me that I'm going to take more damage as a veteran versus a Zealot while sprinting is huge. Or even in the beginning portions of the tutorial telling you, hey, sliding mitigates damage, dodging mitigates damage slightly less, and sprinting will actually increase damage depending upon which characters you're playing. Like, something that tells you that, I think, is pretty massive, because I wasn't really realizing that I was taking more or less damage by doing any one of those 3 actions. I just was like, man, holy crap. that whole firing squad really just melted me right there. But now I know that when I'm on my veteran, that's why it happens. And like I've said before, the Zealot to me feels so tanky. And I, again, said this earlier. I thought it was because of the passive that meant if I reached 0 health, I would be invulnerable for 5 seconds and have a chance to stay alive, right? It's not that, really. Well, I mean, it is that, but it's also the fact that my toughness has so many ways to mitigate that damage by sliding, dodging, and sprinting. So knowing these things and knowing and understanding why that Zealot is so tanky now, I think is very crucial for me, because whenever I would jump from playing the Zealot in one game to the Veteran in the other, I'd be like, shit, I'm just getting peed on right now and I don't know why. Or my Psyker, same thing, same situation. And if you're playing Ogryn and wondering, why do I just feel like I'm soaking up bullets? Well, it's because you're playing an Ogryn and you're the size of a doorway moving up and down the map. But also it's because you take 100% damage from sliding, dodging, and sprinting. So no matter what, you're always taking that full bit of damage. So hopefully this gives you guys a better context on how those base stats affect your gameplay. Now you know to... by the way, Zealot has 50 more health. I'm stupid. I thought they all had 150. Hopefully this gives you a better idea and you're going to start sliding more. I know I am. I'm going to be sliding non-stop. I am going to be like the vanilla ice of Zealots all over the place with my parachute pants and all. So hopefully, you get a little bit more from this. Again, huge shout out to the gentleman who put all this together on Reddit, Psyker, for this post. For this little action right here. And then, it's right there, Psyker. And then, of course, we have the gentleman who put all of this post together in Adius, and then also Dark Mass Data Mining for data mining all of this in the first place. There's so much stuff under the hood for Darktide that it's kind of frustrating, right? It's frustrating because you don't know all these things until someone data mines the cryptic bits out. In my next video, we'll be going into this glossary to talk about all of the terms like rending and impact and what those terms actually mean from Dark Mass's data mining efforts to get us all the nitty gritty of Darktide. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Be on the lookout for more of these types of videos and more of the weapon testing videos. And don't forget to follow my Twitch linked in the description and the pinned comment. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.